Welcome back to the Coach Momentum podcast. It's Karen Capello. This is our final episode in this series on the offer gap. Over the past several episodes, we've talked about many of the challenges coaches experience while growing their businesses. Too many offers, no clear specialty, interested prospective clients who don't move forward, content that isn't creating conversations, referrals that aren't creating predictable revenue, difficulty explaining what makes you different. And as we've discussed, many of these challenges are actually symptoms of something deeper, the offer gap. Today I'd like to talk to you about something slightly different. Not the offer gap itself, but the cost of leaving it unresolved and what the next 6 months could cost. One of the privileges of working with thousands of business and executive coaches is that I get to see patterns in business and decisions and growth. And one pattern I've noticed over the years is this: most coaches underestimate the cost of delay. Why? Because the cost is often invisible, and we're totally optimistic. We do notice the cost of action and investment and commitment. What we don't always notice is the cost of staying exactly where we are. Let me give you an example. A tale of two coaches. Both are talented, both have meaningful experience, both genuinely care about their clients and want to grow thriving coaching businesses. The first coach spends the next 6 months continuing exactly as they are, creating content, having occasional conversations, receiving the occasional referral, adjusting a website, changing a headline, trying a new strategy, and hoping that something finally clicks. The second coach spends 6 months creating clarity. They clarify their specialty, their offer, their messaging, the result they create, how they communicate value. At the end of 6 months, both coaches have done work, yet their trajectories are very different. Why? Because clarity compounds. That's something many people overlook. Confusion compounds too, and so does uncertainty. Every month an offer gap remains unresolved, it influences everything. The content you create, the conversations you have, the referrals you receive, the opportunities you attract, the decisions your prospects make. The challenge is that these costs rarely show up all at once. They compound. They accumulate quietly. One missed conversation, one delayed decision, one referral that doesn't quite fit, one ideal client who visits your website and leaves uncertain, one opportunity that never fully develops. Individually, none of these seem significant. Collectively, they can change the trajectory of an entire year. I often think about coaches who left successful corporate careers to build businesses that align with their values, their purpose, and their vision. They didn't leave because they wanted another job or they wanted another set of meetings. They wanted to create something meaningful. They wanted freedom, more contribution, more fulfillment. And yet, I see many talented coaches spending years circling around the same challenge because they're carrying a level of ambiguity that makes growth harder than it needs to be. That's why I believe the offer gap deserves attention, because it influences every part of the business. A clear offer helps people recognize themselves. It helps referrals happen more naturally. Conversations become easier. Content becomes more relevant. And a clear offer helps clients make quick decisions and ultimately creates contracts. One of the things I learned during my own journey is that momentum and contracts go hand in hand. And this momentum is incredibly valuable, not just financially, although that's there, emotionally too. When you know your business is moving forward, everything feels different. You make decisions differently. You show up differently to your coaching sessions. Think about it. You engage differently. You create differently. You begin operating from possibility instead of uncertainty. And that's a much more enjoyable and really effective way to build a business. Now, I want to be clear, very clear. There's no perfect offer or perfect niche or perfect positioning statement. Waiting for perfection is often a form of delay. We know this. What we're looking for is specialization, enough clarity and specialty that your ideal client immediately recognizes themselves, enough clarity that referral partners know exactly who to send, enough specialization that conversations begin moving more naturally toward decisions, and your business gains momentum. That's what matters. As I reflect on the coaches I've seen create meaningful growth over the years, very few succeeded because they discovered some secret strategy. As I tell my clients, unfortunately, there are no silver bullets, or I would hand one to you. Most of my clients succeeded because they created a specialization. They consistently acted on that clarity. That's a very different approach, and it's available to every coach listening today. As we wrap up this series, I'd like to leave you with a final question. Imagine it's 6 months from now. You've continued doing what you're doing today with the same offers, the same messaging, positioning, the same uncertainty. How does that feel? Now imagine 6 months from now you've created a clear specialty, a compelling offer, a stronger way of communicating your value, and a business that attracts more of the right conversations and gets more of the right contracts. How does that feel? Because ultimately that's the decision in front of every coach. Not whether change is possible, but whether now is the time. Thank you for spending this time with me throughout this series. It's been a pleasure sharing these ideas with you, and my hope is that you begin to see something important. You're likely much closer than you think. The challenge isn't a lack of talent or experience or potential. You have all of those in spades. More often, it's a lack of specialization. And specialization can be created through closing the offer gap. I'm here wishing you continued success, meaningful results, and the courage to create the business you originally envisioned when you began this journey.